and welcome to the first review of the night, which I am dubbing the overwhelming review, because I went to the bottle shop to go and pick up some beer to review, and lo and behold, just as I think I'm starting to catch up with the amazing amount of beers from just the breweries that I usually review. As you sort of noticed here, I don't really have a wide spread. I kind of do certain breweries a lot more than I explore new ones, because track record sort of thing. And, and it's just like, holy Jesus. So I decided to go and do two reviews tonight, because they're both beers that I'm fairly acquainted with. And, I'm going to do a comparison tomorrow night. So for the first review of tonight, I'm going to be reviewing Anchor's California Lager. Of course, from Anchor Brewery, in a can. Now, this was part of their California Craft Pack, which was released in spring. The bottle shop still had a few of them. It's got some hoppy beers in it, and generally I try to not review hoppy beers that are older than 6 months old, and I believe this was probably brewed sometime in March or April. It's now October. The code that they use on it, I can't decipher. I tried deciphering it using the Anchor code, so I know that it's less than a year, but it's probably older than 6 months. But that's fine. It's Anchor, which means that they do a very clean bottling process, clean and tight, and it's also in a can. And I find cans tend to age a little bit better than, withhold age a little bit better than bottles do. So, California Lager. California Lager, 4.9 ABV. The information is on the back of here. So, let's go into this. Anchor California Lager is Anchor's recreation of California's first genuine lager. Thanks to an ice pond in the mountains, a railroad, and a little brewery named Boca, Californians began enjoying the fresh taste of true lager in 1876. Malt is pale and hops are cluster, which is an old world hop, but an old world hop grown in California. This is California in-state. Barley is from California. Hops are from California. Of course, the water is from California. So, let's go and view this. This is the first time I'm actually pouring it out, by the way. I've had it many times in a bottle, but not in glassware. Ooh, nicely carbonated. A hair darker than most American pale lagers, but not really Vienna style dark. It's almost more like a Marzen, shade of a light Marzen, with a thick, fluffy white head. It's thick, which is odd for a American pale lager. This is almost like traditional old world style. And, of course, they do brew good beers, Anchor. Sweet, crackery malts. Almost honeyed. Hops are very floral. There's a hint of age there, but not overwhelmingly so. Bit thicker than your average American pale lager. It's almost like a Czech Pilsner in smell. Definitely crackery, biscuity malts up front. A bit thicker in the mouthfeel than you would think for a 4.9, but still well within, this sort of pale lager parameters. Bit thicker in taste as well. hops are an interesting cross in between old world style, floweriness, cleanness, stone-likeness, but also a stronger bittering component. Just slightly more resiny than your average lager, but definitely not hop dominated. Well balanced in between those malts and hops. A little bit of age here, but still very well drinkable. Almost clean finish. There's a slight amount of malts remaining on the tongue. I'm going to attribute that probably to the age. Hops tend to degrade more than malts do with age, so I'm guessing the hop malt balance is slightly thrown off. Still mostly clean. Probably be perfectly clean if it was fresh. Nice carbonation bite, but not overly so. You can still taste the beer. You can definitely taste that the malts are slightly darker than your average pale lager. It almost shades into, Vienna Lager territory. Almost. Definitely lots of nice mineral rocky tastes in the mid palate there, interplaying with that sort of crackery and biscuitiness and sweetness. Note, when I say sweetness, crackery, biscuity sweetness is still overall on the dry side. I say sweet in terms of style. So there's a little bit more residual sugar there in terms of style, but still well within style guidelines. Nothing cloying. You would definitely say that this is dried beer. So what can I say about California Anchor Lager? Well, it's a pale lager, which is still within style of pale lager. It's almost like it's there within the Pilsner Pilsen style. Pilsner Pilsen. I always mispronounce the German way of saying it wrong. Pilsner style, shading into that almost Vienna Lager style. You can tell by the coloration there. Pretty dark. If I was a little bit more on tune in regards to fine shading, it would actually be really interesting to go and see whether the water used in this is fairly soft or fairly hard. I'm going to guess harder water. So you got this really interesting beer that's clearly a lighter lager with a lot of interesting tweaks to it. Slightly more hop bitterness, aka resininess, but still very old world style. Slightly thicker mouthfeel and malting, but still around the traditional Pilsner strength, pale lager strength. All in all, a very interesting beer, one that really deserves to be drunk completely fresh. It's a very, very good beer fresh. Not that it's bad right now, it's just over 6 months old. Like I said, my own personal rule, except for really heavy beers that can stand aging, like Belgians, Imperial Stouts, things like that. You don't need American barley ones. You generally want to go and have your lighter, especially 4.9 lagers, fresh as possible. That said, you don't need to make a fetish out of it like some people do and like, oh, 2 months? Ew! My line's about 6 months. And even then, like, for now, I'm bending it. And for now, it's still an excellent beer. Don't be afraid of beers unless they're like 2 or 3 years old, for goodness sakes, people. People made beers because the alcohol was a good way of preserving those necessary carbohydrates and proteins inside the beer. So, kind of got on a tangent there, but Anchor California Lager, great pale lager. Doesn't really fit comfortably into American pale lager style, but definitely feels like a traditional old world lager being made in California with Californian ingredients. Definitely worth a look at. That's the first beer review for tonight, folks. Cheers.